Hello world, I welcome us to this brief session today. I remain your very good friend. Of course, I'm your friend, Nyebuchim Titus Digwoke. On this special edition of this program, do you know Webuchim Digwoke? All right, sometimes we've often asked the question, we've had some persons give you the question, when is the right time for me to go check out for my baby's sex? When is the right time for you to get the right sex of your baby on ultrasound scan? That's been a repeated question from different people, and today we decided to talk briefly about that. Okay, when is the right time for you to find out the sex of your baby on ultrasound scan? This is when you should likely go to have an ultrasound scan to find out the sex of your baby. Ideally, from 6th week of fetal development, the gender of the baby will have been obviously developed, formed and distinguished, because at the initial stage, the sex of the baby and that of the male and the female almost look alike. But as development continues from 6 weeks up, it becomes a bit differentiated. But that does not mean that you'll be able to see it on ultrasound scan at that stage. Okay, so in some babies, their penis appear longer and bigger right from inside the womb. All right, and that is why in some persons it is easier to see the sex in some and difficult to see it in some other persons. For some babies who have smaller penis or smaller labia, so to say, sometimes it is difficult to really appreciate it if it has not grown long enough. That is why it is best advised that you have to come at a time where, even if it is a boy, that particular thing that you need to see before you confirm that it's a boy will have grown big enough that you'll be able to see it. And it's because we understand that a lot of the time some women really complain of the fact that they will have to be spending more money to find out the sex of the baby. They come for the scan for the first time, they tell them the baby's sex is not seen. They'll have to come back again a second time before. So some of them might not really have that money to be coming repeating scan just to get the sex of the baby. So in order to save cost for you, all right, it becomes necessary that the appropriate time you might have to come, and then there is a bigger chance of seeing the sex of your baby. So do you know, like I said, to know the sex, it depends on what the baby is showing. If it is a male, you will see the phallus or the penis. If it's a female, you're going to see the vagina on ultrasound scan. But the truth is that there are some babies who have bigger thing. Let me say bigger thing. Yeah, here. If it's a boy, there are babies that really naturally have longer or bigger penis inside the womb. I'll have to call it penis because that is their biological name or the anatomic name to call it. I'm sorry if it's not right for you to hear it. That is okay. So, but even though the sex have been differentiated, it does not mean that you're going to see it on ultrasound scan. That is just a microscopic level of gender differentiation. But then if you want to get it clear on ultrasound scan, when is the right time for you to go to have a scan to check it out? From 18 weeks to 22 weeks, it will be very clear for you to see the sex of the baby, even though it is possible for you to see the sex of the baby earlier than that time. Ideally, I will even prefer that you go to find out the sex of your baby at 24 weeks. But from 18 weeks to 22 weeks, you will be able to see the sex of your baby and it will be clear. However, that is not a guarantee that you will see the sex of the baby even at that 22 weeks, because this is dependent on some factors. Sometimes the baby's legs are closed up that you will not even be able to see it, even though it is up to 22 weeks, it's up to 24 weeks, it's even up to 40 weeks. You might not still see it if the baby decides that you're not going to see it. Sometimes you can find out the sex of the baby earlier than 18 weeks, even 14 weeks, 16 weeks, 15 weeks, you might be able to see the sex of the baby. But what we are saying is, what is the frequency of the ones you will be able to see at that earlier stage? at that earlier stage, the number of the fetuses you might be able to get the sex and get it accurately will not be much. So if you want to get the sex of the baby and you are sure of what you're seeing, I will advise that you go to have that scan at least from 18 weeks upward, but preferably if you can get it done at 24 weeks, that might be even better. That might be better because at that time, the sex of the baby has become very much open, very much developed, all right, such that whatever you see at that time will be very reliable if, of course, you did see it very well. Just remember again that seeing the sex of the baby is dependent on some factors. Such factors will include: one, if the baby's legs are opened enough for one to look through or in between the legs and see what is in there. If the legs are closed, even if it is 36 weeks, 38 weeks, as long as those legs are closed, you will not be able to see. But on a very general note, when will be the appropriate time when you know that when you go to have a scan, wherever you see will very likely be correct? I will encourage you to do that at 24 weeks. But from 18 weeks upwards, you should be able to see the sex of the baby, and it will be very convincing. You could see it earlier than that. Just keep sharing this around so that people will get to know more of this and then be better informed. Just keep coming around, keep commenting, keep sharing. I remain your very good friend. Of course, I'm your friend. And you're Bochim Titus Digwoke on this special edition of your beautiful program. Did you know? We're Bochim Digwoke. See you again. Cheers.